And are we going to examine them in the same way? This budget has preliminarily, it says that it's an 8.68% reduction in the amount of money going to the library for 2009 based upon its 2008 budget. This actually is an incorrect number, since the library pulls its own freight. It pays its own electric, it pays its own pension, it pays its own health, which aren't written into the budgets of any other departments. They come up as separate accounts. If you look in your books, you'll see that there's a separate account for pension, a separate account for health service, separate account for electric, that doesn't appear in any other department's budget. So that the real pull on the library is about 15% reduction, because they have to pay for those increased pensions, they have to pay for those increased health and the increased electric, those increased costs. This is going to result, my understanding is, a meeting was held today with library staff, that library hours will be cut from 68 hours a week to 56 hours, 17% cut in library hours. I haven't heard any other. Now, and in order to meet that, the library staff has agreed, rather than having people laid off, to each take a 10% cut. Meaning each person who works in that library will have their paycheck cut by 10%, so that there won't be layoffs, there won't be any kind of, they'll all at least have a job. Now, I heard a lot of pain that's being shared by other departments, that Cody described them, that raises will be cut in half for department heads, not across the board. There'll be adjustments made to mid-year packages, and Mr. Cody generously agreed not to take any raise, but he's not taking a 10% raise. He's not cutting his office by 17%. He can say every other Friday he'll be off.
Could please get to the point, Mr.
Well, the point of this
Russ?
is I think we need to look at other departments and what can be closed. Do we need do we need our finance department to open every day? Do we need 3 people in that office, a tax collector, an assistant tax collector, and a secretary? Perhaps that office should share it. I'm using just that as an example. I haven't seen that budget. Is that budget, but we can't even have that conversation.
It's deliberative for the council at this point.
Excuse me, can that budget go online so we can see it, we can all see it?
No, not at this time. It's deliberative for the
It
council
is,
and will be made available as we have our work sessions on this.
It's very difficult for us to talk about individual department cuts without them being made in relationship to other departments. I can't even, I've seen the proposed budget that was submitted by the library, because it was made available, and I think I asked for it as an under the open access law, and I was told that that's an open access. If I make an open access request, will the town give me that?
Not at this time. This is deliberative for the council.
So that we're having
it will be as each session is held. There is a schedule, as is for February 12th, of what will be discussed. Those departments will be made available for the public to sit in. We normally don't have any public comment on these, but because there is interest in the budget, there's usually no one, not even the public, shows up for these budget hearings, although we beg and plead for people to come forward, that I've opened it up to the public. This is a work session for the council to hear the different proposals on the budgets before we have our hearings, before we take action. We can make suggestions and things, so it's still a deliberative document, and it's there for the purpose of the council. But this year we are making available the night or the day of the hearings. All the departments for each day will be made available for discussion.
Can there be an intelligent discussion of recommended funding set at statutory minimum for the library without knowing how that amount fits in with the balance of the budget? What intelligent discussion has, and where did that notion come from, unless it was an understanding that the rest of the budget, there's monies that couldn't be cut? So that if you're going to have, these little compartmentalized. There'll be little compartments for each department. Basically, they all have to be discussed relative to each other, because you're cutting because we have pain. Otherwise, we could just allocate, we could just appropriate what everybody needs. You're saying the library is going to be cut 15% because there are other places that need money. Now, how can we intelligently discuss that other places need money without knowing what it is that you're.
Yeah, I
you
don't
have a
think,
secret- this is a
first of
secret
all, you're not
budget.
looking at a shifting of money, you're not taking from the library to give to another department.
I sure am.
There are certain contractual agreements that are made with different unions and different departments, that comes off the top.
Does
When
it-
you talk about a cut in departments, the understanding is the cut is from a request, not from what was currently there, what was currently in the budget. So you're talking about a cut from a request. And I think as we go forward, we're going to look at different departments and what their requests are, what their contractual needs are, and this is a several-month discussion. So as we talk about each one line item by line item, staffing, vehicles, physical plant, whether you need to keep some of these offices open every single day of the week. Some towns are going to a 4-day work week. You're correct in that. That's going to be part of this deliberative process. But once all of the presentations have been made from each of the departments, we come back again and we have hearings to come to put the whole thing together. Plus, the budget is then presented. Then there is time in between where the auditor comes to speak, and it's several meetings before a budget is adopted. So you can have, I guess finally, we won't have it done till June, right?
The problem with that is that the library sits as an independent agency. It doesn't have reserves. It can't shift money. If the trustees don't have the money in February, they have to cut. Otherwise, their other choice is to maintain, hoping that you'll fully fund them, and they'll close down for November and December.
But you know, you and I know, because you've been to the special meetings, that they do have reserves. They do have money that's left over from last year that was not expended, that they do have to carry forward this year. You and I do know that they do have excess in their accounts, their
They have an endowment fund.
NPLI,
Well, let me speak
that
about
they
it.
don't bring all of the money over that's accrued, that goes back into their investments. And, you know, that talks to what the library board has to consider and weigh is what they can free up in cash. Is this the time when you have to draw against endowment? We're not looking at this as being certainly times of any permanence. I mean, we haven't seen a year like this since maybe the mid-'70s. And yeah, these are tough times. This is called almost austerity. We're not quite to that point, but we're pretty close.
You know, I've been before the library trustees, and I've advocated that they try to free up more money from their endowment. However, the gap that's being presented here of $170,000, because the increase really just covered those costs which the town covers for every other agency, those pension costs, those electricity costs, to operate the building. There's no way that the endowment can cover that. It's like asking the library, why don't you take the library tables and set them on fire and use that for heat? And then when you run out of the tables, start using the books. Because each year, the endowment has been giving 100. Last year it gave 120,000. It was planning on giving another 120,000.
When it made 400 and some thousand.
Excuse me?
And when it made 400,000, it gave 100 and some thousand to the borough, right?
But those were but that made possible in the good years the ability to give in a year like this 120 or more thousand. And I'm not defending.
No,
what it has
I
done
think
in
we're
past
talking about
years.
the same thing,
But
right?
we both. But this budget has an assumption that the library is worth the minimum that you can give it, and if the assessments go down, let's give it even less. If the equalized assessments, we have some tax appeals, and let the devil take the hindmost. There's been no discussion, as I understand, from trustees as to what it means to cut the library. There's very detailed discussions with Mr. Cody
Correct.
as to what happens with the fire department, what happens with the police department,
No.
what happens with the finance department.
There have been detailed discussions
Yeah.
with the library. There've been several with the library,
As
not
to-
the entire library board. And I know that within the library board, they have offered their own cuts, which seem pretty common sense, which hasn't been brought to the whole library board's discussion as well. Your discussion about the library deciding themselves to cut 10% is news to me, who's a library board member.
Okay,